picture was taken of the Fort Pierce Police Department Special Investigations Unit. On January the 12th, 1987, this all came to an end. It was 9:46 p.m. and we had a job to do. That was to seize a kilo of cocaine which we had received a sample from. A few minutes later, gunfire broke out, and for the 3 detectives inside, they had each been shot. This didn't stop Lieutenant Cooper and Detective Waters, though. For Detective Waters, his job was now to kill Dan Hunt, who was behind the wall waiting for the next officer to enter. Detective Waters fired 16 9mm rounds in a zigzag pattern through this wall, hitting the subject 4 times. For Lieutenant Cooper, who was the only one in the trailer who could see Dan Hunt, warned me that he was still behind the wall. Lieutenant Cooper took the last 2 rounds from this .357 Magnum to save my life. For both of these men, they didn't quit until the job was done.
In the past 24 hours, 2 Fort Pierce police officers and a suspected drug dealer have been shot and killed. Law officers, in conjunction with the state attorney's office, had reason to believe Ralph Horton and his stepfather Dan Hunt were involved in an illegal drug operation. 25-year-old Horton was arrested last night.
He's charged with 2 counts of felony murder and 2 counts of attempted murder at this time. There's a possibility of a 3rd count of felony murder if Officer Waters passes away.
Okay, now what about the charges from the state attorney's office?
As we were told earlier, the state attorney's office will probably be charging him with additional charge of conspiracy to traffic in cocaine.
Neighbors are astonished to find out Horton and Hunt may have been dealing in cocaine. They say last night was like a bad dream.
It's like being something you see on TV. It's hard to believe it, all the shooting and stuff was going on. There was an awful lot of shooting, awful lot later on. They sounded like a lot of pistols went off, and then you could shout with shotguns going off, and it was quite an experience, you know. It's something that close to your own home which you don't think would really happen.
Lieutenant Grover Cooper died last night in the emergency room. Officers Jimmy Waters and Robert Spring were admitted to Lawnwood Medical Center. Following all-night surgery, Waters died this afternoon. Spring remains in serious but stable condition at this hour. No bond has been set for Horton for the murder charges. Bond was set at $100,000 for attempted murders. Meanwhile, law officers have spent the day searching the trailer and trying to put the pieces together. The body of 47-year-old Dan Hunt was removed from his trailer this afternoon.
Apparently involved in the cocaine dealing, and then is believed to have fired the shots that wounded and killed the officers.
The search is still on for Carol Hunt. Law officers believe she escaped her home through the back door during the shootout. She's wanted for questioning. No warrant has been issued for her arrest.
The Florida Department of Law Enforcement is running tests on all guns used in the shootout. Today, WTVX learned the preliminary results of one of those tests. Captain Grover Cooper's gun was a Sig Sauer 9mm like this one. Sig Sauers have been used by the Fort Pierce Special Unit since December. Reports surfaced after the shootout that Cooper's gun misfired. Sources at FDLE say the gun probably was not faulty. Experts say the gun misfired because of an external force while Cooper was shooting. It is not yet known what that external force could have been. FDLE speculates someone might have grabbed the gun. That could have caused the slide to retard. The gun was cocked when it was found, but it was not cocked far enough to let a bullet escape. FDLE says they have not found any hair or blood on the gun to prove a struggle ensued that night. They are still checking residues and clothing from the victims. FDLE hopes those tests will prove who fired at whom.
You are Ralph Horton.
Police say this man, Ralph Horton, was Dan Hunt's partner in a cocaine distribution ring. Horton is also charged with 3 counts of murder because the state prosecutor says his drug dealing helped bring about the shooting. He's awaiting trial without bond in the St. Lucie County Jail.
Okay, we're still searching. We have him. 7.
Since the night of the shooting, WTVX has learned these facts about the case. Cooper fired the first shot, but his gun misfired and he could not shoot again. Waters fired 15 shots through a wall at Hunt, striking him perhaps 4 times. It's not clear whether Cooper's one shot struck Hunt.
Hunt fired 12 rounds at the officers, 6 from a .38 Smith & Wesson and 6 from a Ruger 357. He killed both Coopers and Waters and wounded Spring. Spring did not fire a shot during the confrontation. All 4 guns were sent to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement for analysis. As WTVX first reported, the preliminary report is back on Cooper's gun. Several new facts have been discovered. That weapon was tested for hair and blood to see if there was a struggle. The result was negative. The preliminary report also shows that Cooper's gun misfired due to an external force against the slide. What that force was has yet to be determined. But the report seems to indicate that Cooper's gun did not suffer an internal malfunction. Since the shootout, Fort Pierce Assistant Police Chief Ronnie Parker has sent a memo to all officers requiring that a bulletproof vest be worn any time a warrant is served. Though not stated, this new order seems to be a direct response to the shooting.
There are still many unanswered questions as to what happened the night of January 12th at this home. Only 6 people know the entire story. Of them, 3 are still alive. Spring is under departmental order not to talk to the media. Horton is in jail. Only Carol Hunt, the wife of Dan Hunt, escaped the scene that night unscathed. She maintains a voluntary silence. Her whereabouts are unknown.
These 17 jurors decided to indict Ralph Skipper Horton on 3 felony murder charges, 1 attempted murder charge, and drug trafficking. 4 witnesses took the stand to present evidence supporting the charges. The witnesses, St. Lucie Sheriff's Detective Bob Miller, Sergeant James Hamilton, Medical Examiner Dr. Leonard Walker, and Fort Pierce Police Officer Stacy Moran, remain closed-mouthed about the case. The jury heard testimony that Sergeant Grover Cooper's gun jammed after he fired his first shot. The empty shell casing stayed inside the 9mm automatic weapon, causing him to be unable to return fire. The surviving officer, Robert Spring, told officers in an earlier statement that Cooper fired first. And jurors were also told that Horton's stepfather, reputed drug dealer Dan Hunt's blood alcohol level was above the state's legal limits. State Attorney Bruce Colton says he was unable to meet all the defense attorney's criteria to enable Horton to testify. The attorney, Mark Orr, requested he be allowed to confer with his client after each question, a court reporter be allowed in the courtroom, and Orr receive Horton's alleged confession.
Mr. Orr is entitled to any statements that we have if he files the necessary documents, which would be a demand for discovery, of course, which can't be filed until after charges are filed. So if charges are filed and if he files the necessary papers, he would be entitled to those statements. But until then, he's not entitled to them.
The man's facing terribly serious charges. If we don't know what he said before he goes in there, I think it'd be like sending him into the lion's den.
Now that the indictment has been filed, the grand jury will meet again February 5th.
Treasure Coast authorities say Lieutenant Cooper and Officer Waters were the latest victims in the ongoing war against drug traffickers. During the first 9 months of last year, cocaine arrests in Florida were up more than 80% over the previous year. Here along the Treasure Coast, Martin and St. Lucie counties averaged more than 300 arrests. In Indian River County, there were nearly 90. Grover Cooper headed up the Fort Pierce Vice and Narcotics Unit. His record spoke for itself.
His loss is going to have a tremendous impact because of his leadership. He's not going to be replaced right away. I think he had the potential to possibly become a chief.
Chief Powell isn't about to give up the fight.
But we do have others that are qualified. This is one of the responsibilities that we have. It's like being in the military. You may lose a battle, but you don't lose the war. So we will continue.
When Cooper and his 2 partners raided the Hunt home, they weren't wearing protective vests. While the department doesn't require their use, they are recommended in some situations.
If he's working undercover and meeting with known drug people, he cannot effectively wear a bulletproof vest without tipping his hand as being an officer. So there's a lot of occasions where a vest cannot be worn.
The loss of Cooper and Waters will indeed have a severe impact on the police department vice squad. But as Chief Powell put it, the war does continue, and somehow the squad will have to regroup. Several hundred law officers from across the state gathered at the Armory to honor two of their own who fell in the line of duty. More than 2,000 in all came to say goodbye to Captain Grover Cooper and Sergeant Jimmy Waters.